So this is the Eurostar departure lounge. As I say, directly to Paris in about 90 minutes, I believe, maybe even less. So that's handy. Going up these escalators as well, actually, there are more trains that go to the Midlands of England. So that's like Birmingham, Leicester, that sort of area. And this place here, which is now served by First Capital Connect Rail, Thameslink, basically that's good for getting around the southeast of England, and in fact you can go right to the south coast to a lovely little town called Brighton, which you've probably heard of. You can get, you've got to be careful with the ticket machines in these places because they don't give you the best option straight up. If you put in London to Brighton on a weekend, it's going to come up £20 or £30, something like that. But if it is the weekend, Saturday or Sunday, you want to go for a few more options, you will get a £10 day return. So again, another great day trip out from London. Right, this is my manor. This is where I grew up, Elstree and Boreham Wood, otherwise known as the Wood. Right, Elstree is a little shitty village over that side of the bridge. You don't want to go up there; it's all queers and Jews. Boreham Wood is this beautiful little town that I'm going to show you now. It's not really, it's pretty much a shithole. Well, it was a shithole when I was growing up, but it's quite nice now actually. And as you can see, there is an actual reason that you might want to come here. Now that is on the Thameslink, right? From King's Cross, that's about 20 minutes. And Boreham Wood's got quite a history actually, of, as you might be able to interpret, film and television. There's a few film studios here, and they're currently still active with some, pretty popular shows being filmed. But the best things they made here was long ago in the past, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that. But we can see the Walk of Fame beginning here now, as we come out of the train station. Can you read that one? Yeah, you can read that, can't you? Peter Sellers, classic. Not sure what he made here, but quite a few things. I love Stanley Kubrick's films were made here. What we got there? Gregory Peck, we all know the name, but I couldn't tell you a single film he was in. But here's the biggest one, the greatest star of them all. Da, 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 da. It's only bleeding Stan from On the Bus, isn't it? So that is possibly the best thing about Boreham Wood. And this is Boreham Wood Shopping Park, quite a nice little selection of your top high street names here. This is Sunday evening, hence the fact that everything is closed, but I assure you it is pretty well open and thriving, this area. Now the reason I'm showing you this right now is not particularly interesting, but I just want to give you a little anecdote to help you understand a little bit about what sort of town Boreham Wood is. This shop here, Lidl, right, you probably all well familiar with Lidl, great shop in my opinion, and I got a particular place for this store in my heart because I used to work here. I worked here when the store very first opened, right, we're talking 15, 16 years ago now. I took some training in Edgware and I opened up this store with the manager, who was also previously from Edgware, a man called Brian. Brian was a black guy. Not sure where his parents were from, but he was English, and when this store opened, Lidl head office received a letter of complaint that the manager was black. Right, there was no accusation of misdoing or wrongdoing or incompetence or no specific allegations of anything whatsoever, just simply the fact that the man was black. So that's just a little insight into what sort of town Boreham Wood is. And I'll be honest with you, that's 20 years ago, that's like 15 years ago, but when I was at school, say 20 years ago, 25 years ago, We didn't have black people in this town. We had about 2 black kids in my school, and that was it. And you know, obviously nowadays things have things have changed quite a lot. And obviously loads of Eastern European immigrants here as well, and all of that. And this is the kind of town, this is exactly the kind of town, and it's worth listening to this, what I'm saying now, because this is a cautionary tale, right? This is the kind of town where cunts like UKIP get votes, you know? This is the kind of town where people, learn to kind of fear the outsider, right? And, because they don't know it, because it's different, right? Because they've grown up in a way they haven't known any of this. You take my nan and granddad, for example, yeah? My nan and granddad would have grown up all their lives in this town without seeing a black face or hearing any foreign accents, and now the town is absolutely full of them. Now please don't for one moment misinterpret what I'm saying, that I have a problem with that, because I don't have any problem with that. On a cultural level, on a social level, I got no problem with that at all. But there are problems arising from it, and these kind of problems are what give rise to the likes of UKIP, BNP actually getting some kind of credibility in this country, you know, because they should have none. They should have none, because they're idiots. They're racist, you know. I'm not a racist, despite some of the things that I might say. I mean, I've got prejudices. I also like, racial humour, because I've grown up in a place like this, and it's like a normal thing to me. I don't find it offensive. Sometimes I find it offensive, but for the most part, it's a laugh. You take it on the chin. Now, my grandmother, who, bear in mind, my grandmother's father came from India, right? But now you go around my nan's house and she'd be all bloody foreigners, this and that and that and that. And you've got to understand where they're coming from a little bit, because it's totally alien to what they've known. Where they live now is not like where they lived when they were growing up, and they don't recognise it, and they're frightened of it, they're intimidated by it. And you've got to think about that for some of the older generations, and even maybe the generation below them. You can sympathise a little bit, the sort of 50, 60-year-old guys now, seem like a bit racist, but you've got to understand their experience, you know what I mean? You've got to understand how they've grown up and how they're living now. And of course the younger generation, who've got almost no chance of getting a fucking job in this country. You can't even go into a cafe or work behind the till in a shop, because Mrs. Levchev and Mr. Walchowski have already taken the jobs, because they'll work for £2 an hour less, and I'm not blaming those people. Do you know what I mean? I've got nothing against anybody who wants to go anywhere. I've been an economic migrant. I've worked in foreign countries, I've done that, and I've been lucky enough to come from a country where we can command a wage, and we go abroad and we get a sort of reasonable wage. But these people can't, and they come here and they take £5 an hour, £6 an hour, and they're laughing because it's more than they've ever made in their own countries. And you cannot blame them for that. You've got to give them every right in the world to do that, you know what I mean? Because each individual should have any right to succeed and better themselves however they wish to do that, yeah? But the thing is, where does it leave the locals? Where does it leave the youngsters who can't get a job because, they need £7 an hour, they need £9 an hour? Where does it leave them? And you've got to think about that, and government needs to legislate for that, So that's just a little cautionary tale, of where the direction this country's going in, and it's not good. There do need to be some kind of restrictions, or look, let's put it this way. I'm all for no restrictions, but there's got to be more done to take care of the people that need it, the disadvantaged people that have been born here and grown up here and have no other option than to be here, really, because they ain't got the money to get out for whatever reason, and they ain't got the money even to go to university now and get a better education and get themselves out, because again, that's sewn up, so you either come here with a lot of money, or you're born with a lot of money, or you come here with fuck all and you work for fuck all. But if you're born here with fuck all and you don't want to work for fuck all, then you're fucked and you're going to get fuck all, and that's basically what's happening in this country at the moment. So Yeah, but anyway, that's Borehamwood High Street for you. It's alright, isn't it? You might well recognise Borehamwood High Street actually from such cinematic classics as On the Buses, Mutiny on the Buses, Confessions of a Driving Instructor, Confessions of a Window Cleaner. Yeah, you would have seen Robin Asquith, Reg Vardy, all them lot driving up and down the street. Yeah, really cinematically legendary location this right now. Right, up here we have a Tesco Extra, 24/7 that is. Oh, except now actually, it's closed on Sunday evenings. But apart from that, 24/7. But that is also a cinematically interesting site, because that was where the water tank was for Moby Dick. Now, if you've ever seen the old MGM film Moby Dick, and you might know that certainly at the time, I'm not sure about now, I think it might even hold some sort of record now, it was the biggest water stage ever built, you know. So they built, you know, a tank full of water basically, to give the impression of the sea. That's how immense that was, and that was all there on that site of Tesco. Unfortunately, when I was growing up, the studios were not so active. This is during the Margaret Thatcher years, you know. It was in the days of this was when all the railways were getting privatised by Thatcher, you know. So much more private healthcare and all that coming in, parts of the NHS being sold off. You know, this was really where the rot began to set in this country, and that's really what the current Conservative government are, you know, trying to perpetuate now. So the studios pretty much went into what can I say? They went into disrepair. They went into disuse. Can I say that? Is that a word? Disuse? Anyway, there was very little being done here. You know, you had your odd things, a few television productions going on and whatnot. But compared to the glory days, you know, the glory days of the 1970s, as I said, you had the likes of Stanley Kubrick working here. He made 2001 in here, I believe. Star Wars was made in here. Indiana Jones, you know, or the first two films, certainly. What else? Superman, yeah, the first 2 or 3 of those. It really was. It's done some absolutely classic, legendary films in here. Now, it's most famous, believe it or not, for Big Brother. Alright? That is where the Big Brother house is, alright? If you go in there behind these buildings to the back lot, you will find a room full of 10 or 12 of the most obnoxious cunts you will ever meet, chatting bullshit and being broadcast to millions of viewers. It's on right now actually, as I'm filming this. It's the Celebrity Big Brother. I was tempted when I saw Jenna Jameson's in it, but she's a bit past it now, to be fair, so no, I haven't watched it yet, and I am a cunt for that as well. I get into that, I do watch the Big Brother. As much as I shouldn't, you know, as much as we know it is fucking terrible food for the mind. The first couple of series were quite interesting, and it's just gone a bit far now, isn't it? Especially there's too many, you know, secret evictions, things like that, and you get people watching the housemates from a secret room, and then you're watching them, and you're actually watching people watch Big Brother. You know, and it's gone out of control, but they still keep churning it out every year and people still keep watching it. So yeah, anyway, it's filmed in there, and that brings massive crowds every time there's an eviction or something like that. You'll get a massive crowd. So, you know, Borehamwood's still a boom town really, and they're still building housing developments wherever they can, basically. A lot of the old pubs have been knocked down, and it's happening all over the town. And you know, this is happening in small towns all over the country, you know. But where are all the people coming from? Well, we know where they're coming from, don't we? They're coming in from abroad, and again, I'm not criticising those people for having the right to do that, but some kind of protection for the fallout from that should be provided by government, because you can't tell a kid that's born in a shitty town like this with no prospects, go on then, you're on your own, just try your best, yeah? You can't, well, you can tell them that, but you're going to fucking see the results, you know? And it's going to be a country full of robbing, fucking fighting little scumbags. Of course, on the upside, we will start to see mass scale prostitution like what they have in Indonesia. So, it's not all bad, is it? Hang on a minute. Hang on. Just had to get up Bournemouth to finish that one. I can feel myself slowly getting more racist with every footstep that I took down Shenley Road. No, but seriously, you know, what I'm saying is, as I've explained, it's not based on racism at all. It's not based on, you know, an irrational fear of people's differences. It's based purely on the fact that there are too many people in this country, and you can see that if you walk down the street in London, or even to an extent Boreham Wood now, compared to where it used to be. And the more people that are willing to work for lower wages that we have in the country, the less opportunities there are for those that are born and raised here. So, and that's the bottom line, really. And it is not unreasonable to expect some sort of government legislation to, you know, to make sure that there are no negative effects from that. I mean, let anybody come here and work here, whoever they want to, is my opinion. But make sure that, you know, you have a system in place which caters for those that are born and raised here, you know. And if that means limits on immigration, then that's what it has to mean. Or if it means better benefits for local people, you know, something like a basic income, so that everybody, you know, could stay above the poverty line, even if they weren't able to get a sufficiently well-paid job because of the economic circumstances, you know, created by the masters of the economy. So as long as everyone can look after themselves, you know, and they don't have to, you know, turn to the breadline or turn to a life of crime, you know, whatever that crime might be, then you know, go for it, do whatever you want. Let anybody come and work here. I've got no problem with that. I don't care who they are, where they come from, and especially, you know, if they have, you know, suffered some kind of you know, tragedy in their homeland, you know, particularly if that tragedy is like an indirect result of, you know, our own foreign policy. You know, what are we as human beings if we can't offer help to people in this such desperate situation, regardless of the fact that this whole situation has been engineered, you know, by our own foreign policy in the first place, you know, our own fucking bloodlust and desire to reappropriate land and, you know, propagate the arms trade, you know. So we've only got ourselves to blame if we're going to go and fucking create disruption in all these countries and bomb perfectly good infrastructures to fucking shit, and then let extremist groups fucking infiltrate the power vacuum, you know, like in the case of Libya and Iraq. And while we're at it, why don't we, you know, actually train and fucking put into action these extremist groups, you know, because let's be realistic about what's going on in the world. If we're going to do all that, I think we've got to take the refugees, really, haven't we? But, you know, again, it is going to be another influx of people vastly culturally different, some of whom, you know, might cause disruption in the community, and the rest of whom are just, you know, going to fit into places in the economy where local kids could have and would have, but now won't be able to. So, you know, it is a kind of double-edged sword, the whole migrant crisis. Sorry, hashtag migrant crisis. You know, there are genuine concerns, and you can't blame people for having those concerns. and in the present circumstances, that is just going to be like a match to the powder keg, unfortunately, in this country. So I can't see much good coming of it. Yeah, we're just being fucking so heavily manipulated with, all this propaganda in the newspapers, about hashtag migrant crisis, and at the same time we can see the conditions around us deteriorating, and now we're going to see the results of hashtag migrant crisis, meaning, some kind of influx, as I say, of potentially badly behaved people, and people that are going to use resources, and people that are going to take jobs, and I don't think a lot of the British public are going to take kindly to it, and you should understand their position on that, I think. But what is going to go on in this country? What is going to happen? And it's all, for me, engineered to destabilise the nation, to keep us further and further away from the unity that we can so easily discover if we operate in society in a way that was designed to, support the greater needs and benefits of the inhabitants, rather than create profit for those who are in a position to create profit-making mechanisms and run them as they see fit, which is what I like to call the ruling class, or they, or them. So, they are fucking cunts. And they're fucking us over, man. They're doing all this to fuck us over and destabilise us. So, when you're worried about the hashtag migrant crisis, just remember who's behind it all. And it's the same people that fucking created these migrants, by engineering unreasonable trade agreements and manipulating world markets to keep values low in those countries and high in these countries, exploiting the cheap labour, and now importing the cheap labour, and exploiting the fucking cultural diversity by creating wars and training terrorists, and making up this whole fantasy thing in the media that we're all under threat from terrorists, when in reality they're creating the threat, just to maintain the division and maintain the fear and continue the success of the war trade. And that's all what's going on in the world, and that is the news. Thank you for watching. Here's Tom with sports.